The night before the biggest TV show of their lives, Michael couldn't focus, and Rose Fine pulled a book from her shelf that changed everything. April 3rd, 1974. Tomorrow night, the Jackson 5 would perform on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. 11 million viewers. The biggest platform they'd ever had. But right now, in the small classroom of their Los Angeles home, 15-year-old Michael Jackson couldn't get the choreography right. Again, his father Joseph said from the doorway. His arms were crossed, his voice was flat. Michael reset his position. Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon fell into formation around him. The music started. Michael's feet moved, but his mind was somewhere else. He missed the turn. His brothers adjusted, covering for him, but Joseph saw it. "Stop." Joseph's hand went up. The music cut off. "Michael, what's going on with you?" "Nothing. We don't have time for just. Tomorrow is Carson. You know what that means?" Michael knew. Everyone knew. The Tonight Show wasn't just another performance. It was the performance. The one that could take them from successful to legendary. "Let's go again," Joseph said. They went again. Michael missed the same turn, and again. Same mistake. Jackie caught Michael's eye. His older brother looked worried. That made it worse. "Take 5, Joseph finally said. He walked out, shaking his head. The brothers collapsed onto the floor, exhausted. All except Michael, who stood by the window, staring out at nothing. "Mike, you okay?" Marlon asked quietly. "Yeah." "You don't look okay." Michael didn't answer. How could he explain that his mind felt like static, that every time he tried to focus on the choreography, his thoughts scattered like birds? Tomorrow night, millions of people would watch. Johnny Carson would watch. And if Michael messed up, if he froze, if he forgot the steps, if he let everyone down, he couldn't let that happen. But right now, he couldn't stop it from feeling inevitable. An hour later, Michael was still in the practice room, alone. He'd run through the routine 6 more times. Still couldn't nail that turn. His brothers had gone to their rooms. Joseph had disappeared somewhere in the house, probably making phone calls about tomorrow's logistics. Michael was supposed to be resting, preparing, getting his mind right. Instead, he was stuck in a loop of anxiety and muscle memory that wouldn't cooperate. A soft knock on the doorframe made him turn. Rose Fine stood there, watching him with those kind eyes that always seemed to see more than he wanted to show. Rose had been their tutor since 1970, traveling with them on tours, making sure they kept up with their education while the world pulled them in every direction. But she was more than a teacher. She was the closest thing to his mother when his real mother was hundreds of miles away. "You've been in here for 2 hours," Rose said. Her voice was gentle but firm. "That's enough for tonight." "I need to get this right," Michael said. Tomorrow you'll be brilliant like always. Tonight you're exhausted. I keep messing up the turn. Dad's right, I need to—" "Michael." Rose stepped into the room. "Come with me." He hesitated. But Rose's classroom had always been a safe place. The one room in whatever house or hotel they were staying in where the pressure lifted, where he could just be a kid learning about books and history instead of a performer carrying the weight of his family's future. "Okay," he said quietly. Rose's classroom was just down the hall, a converted guest room with a large desk, bookshelves lining the walls, and a window that overlooked the backyard. The desk was covered with textbooks, notebooks, colored pencils, and a globe that Michael had spun 1,000 times while studying geography. Rose gestured to the chair by the window. Michael sat. She pulled up another chair across from him. "Tell me what's going on in that head of yours," Rose said. Michael stared at his hands. I don't know. I can't focus. Every time I try to think about the choreography, my mind goes blank. And tomorrow is important. I know. It's more than important. It's everything. If I mess up on national television in front of Johnny Carson, in front of millions of people, you won't mess up. But what if I do? Rose was quiet for a moment. Then she stood and walked to one of the bookshelves. Her fingers traced the spines of books until she found the one she was looking for. She pulled it out, a worn hardcover with a faded green cover, and came back to her chair. I want to read you something, Rose said. Mrs. Fine, I don't think... It's short. Just listen. Michael settled back in his chair. Rose opened the book to a marked page and began to read. Her voice was calm, steady, the kind of voice that made the world slow down. The story was about a young musician, a violinist, who had been invited to perform at a prestigious concert hall. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. But the night before the performance, the violinist couldn't sleep. His mind raced with all the ways he could fail. His fingers felt clumsy. The music that had once flowed naturally now felt forced, mechanical. The violinist's teacher found him in the practice room at midnight, playing the same passage over and over, never satisfied. The teacher didn't tell him to practice more, didn't tell him to push through. Instead, the teacher told him to stop, to close his eyes, to remember why he loved music in the first place, not because of the audience, not because of the applause, but because music was a language he spoke when words weren't enough. Rose's voice carried the story gently, and Michael found himself leaning forward, listening not just to the words but to the rhythm of them, the way they settled something restless inside him. The violinist in the story stopped practicing. He closed his eyes. He remembered his first violin, the way it had felt in his small hands, the first clumsy notes he'd played that had made his mother smile. And he remembered that the music wasn't about perfection. It was about connection, about touching something true. When Rose finished reading, she closed the book and looked at Michael. Tomorrow night, 11 million people will watch you, she said. But here's what you need to remember. You're not performing for 11 million people. You're performing for the one person in the audience who needs to hear what you have to say. Maybe it's a kid who feels invisible. Maybe it's someone who had a terrible day and needs 3 minutes of joy. Maybe it's someone who doesn't even know they need it yet. You're not there to be perfect. You're there to connect. Michael felt something shift in his chest. It was small, but it was real. What if I forget the steps? Then you'll improvise. You've done it before. What if my voice cracks? Then you'll keep singing. You've done that before too. What if... Michael. Rose leaned forward, her hand resting on his. You're going to walk on that stage tomorrow night, and you're going to do what you've always done. You're going to give everything you have, and it's going to be enough. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Michael looked down at her hand on his. Rose's hands were always warm, always steady. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For this. For knowing I needed this. Rose smiled. That's what I'm here for. Now go get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day. Michael stood, but he didn't leave right away. He looked at the book in Rose's hands. Can I ask what that story's called? It doesn't matter, Rose said. What matters is that you heard it. Michael nodded. He walked to the door, then paused. Mrs. Fine? Yes? Your door is always open, right? Rose's smile widened. Always, Michael, always. The next night, April 4th, 1974, the Jackson 5 walked onto the Tonight Show stage. The lights were bright, the audience was loud. Johnny Carson sat at his desk, watching with that famous half-smile. Michael stepped up to the microphone. the music started, and for the first time in 2 days his mind was clear. He wasn't thinking about the 11 million people watching. He wasn't thinking about the choreography or the possibility of failure. He was thinking about the one person out there who needed to hear this, the one person who was having a terrible day, the one person who felt invisible. He sang, "Never Can Say Goodbye" like he meant every word. His feet hit every mark. His voice didn't crack. His brothers were right there with him, in perfect sync, the way they'd always been. When the song ended, the audience erupted. Johnny Carson stood and clapped. Backstage, Joseph nodded once, his version of praise. The brothers hugged, relieved, and exhilarated. But Michael looked past them, to the edge of the stage where Rosefine stood, smiling. He caught her eye and mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." She nodded. She knew. Later that night, after the cameras stopped rolling and the audience went home, after the brothers had celebrated and Joseph had made his phone calls, Michael found himself walking down the hallway of their hotel. He stopped at a familiar door. It was slightly open, always open. He knocked softly. "Come in," Rose's voice called from inside. Michael stepped into the small hotel room that Rose had turned into a makeshift classroom. Books were stacked on the nightstand. A thermos of warm milk sat on the desk. "I thought you might stop by," Rose said. She was sitting in the chair by the window, a book open in her lap. "Couldn't sleep?" "No, Michael sat on the edge of the bed. "I wanted to say thank you. For last night, for the story. I don't think I could have done it without that." "You could have," Rose said. "But I'm glad I could help. That story about the violinist, did you know it would work? That it would help me calm down?" Rose closed her book and looked at him. "I know you, Michael. I know that when your mind is racing, facts and logic don't help. Stories do. They always have." Michael smiled. It was true. Ever since he was small, stories had been the thing that made sense when nothing else did. "What was that book?" "Does it matter?" "I guess not. It worked. That's what matters." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Outside, the city hummed with late-night traffic. Inside, the room felt like the safest place in the world. "Mrs. Fine." "Yes?" "Why do you always keep your door open?" Rose looked at him with those kind, steady eyes. "Because I want you to know that no matter what's happening out there, no matter how big the stage gets, no matter how many people are watching, there's always a place where you can just be Michael. Not Michael Jackson, the performer, just Michael. And that place is always here, with the door open whenever you need it." Michael felt his throat tighten. He didn't trust himself to speak for a moment. Finally, he said, "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'd be fine. You're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong." Strength isn't about feeling it, Michael. It's about showing up even when you're scared. And you did that tonight. You've been doing it your whole life. Michael looked down at his hands. The same hands that had held the microphone hours ago, that had moved through choreography he thought he'd never nail, that had reached out to 11 million people through a TV screen. "Can I stay for a while?" he asked. "Of course," Rose said. She picked up the book from her lap. "Want me to read to you?" "Yeah, I'd like that." Rose opened the book and began to read. Her voice filled the small room, steady and calm, wrapping around Michael like a blanket. He leaned back against the headboard, closed his eyes, and listened. Outside, the world kept spinning. Inside, for just a little while, everything was still.